15-second little intro.
That's cool.
So you should see that on your screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting setting all of that stuff up too. I'm trying to get it like the scrap, but that's also hard.
Yeah, keep chipping away, you'll get there.
All right, welcome all to Backseat Wisdom, episode number 3. Tonight we're joined by BJ Breecher. He's got 17 years on the job as a volunteer, sometime with the DNR, private EMS part, and full-time firefighter EMT. He is currently a firefighter, advanced EMT, correct?
Correct.
Okay, with the Portage Fire Department in Wisconsin. In your free time, you like to do some typical Wisconsin stuff, hunt and fish. So love that. This podcast is a spot, and I want to explain this again, is me not trying to teach or explain anything or show someone how to do it, but just passing the message on from people that do. So BJ, thanks for coming on. Thanks for having the time to do this tonight. First things is we're going to go into fitness and why that is important. Well, sorry, backtrack. Getting ahead of myself.
It's okay.
What inspired you to join the fire service, and then more in depth of the training and the working out and that kind of stuff.
What inspired me to join the fire service? Well, I lost my job working for corporate America. And leading up to that point, I remember I was at work one day and I thought to myself about what it wasn't doing this, what would I be doing? And I said, well, it'd be something either natural resources or firefighting. But fast forward, I lost my job and I decided to go back to some schooling. And I jumped online, and your alma mater, Fox Valley Technical College, was offering a wildland firefighter class the following week. And it just so happened that my vacation time that was paid out matched the tuition to the cent. So went and got certified, did some networking during that class, got an interview, and worked part-time out of the White Lake station in Langlade County. That went really well. And kind of my last day there, I said, you know what, maybe I could turn this into a career. And with that being said, I kind of stopped for a second. I said, well, hey, what about structural firefighting? So I kind of, worked off of that, and it snowballed to where I am today, where I got in the structural side, did the volunteer bit for a little bit, kind of cut my chops, whether it be fire or EMS, and then worked for private EMS, and just slowly snowballing to where I am today. So yeah, that's how that all came together.
Awesome.
One of the things that you had asked about is, you had asked earlier when we were kind of pre-gaming, so to speak. You had said that, what are some of the things that pushed me to kind of sink my teeth into training a little bit more. And I think there's a lot of us that go through this period earlier in our career where, we get done with Fire 1, Fire 2, and all that. And we take those, I don't want to say entry-level classes, but those first base classes. And, we leave that class thinking we've got a good, base of knowledge. We know some things. And then we go to a department or we get on the fire ground and we're just like, oh man, you know what? Some of these things that are going on, this was never, brought up in class. There's some fine details and some real world things that weren't presented to me. And I can remember the moment for me was, I was looking for more training opportunities. I'd done some things at my volunteer department in Broadhead, and they were all well and good, and it was all I knew at the time. So I thought I was doing all right, but I just wanted to see what else was out there. Just doing the old Google search, I came across a RIT training put on by the Bruce City Fools, and got the opportunity to go out there and train with those guys. And the thing that really struck me is they were doing some of the things during the training that I didn't get at MATC when I got my Fire 1 and Fire 2. And they were also doing some things that, I was always told was cowboy stuff, and I remember sitting there looking up at this ladder and watching somebody do a bailout drill and going, that's kind of cowboy stuff, but it makes sense. And I had a little bit of a vapor lock there because I'm like trying to marry these two things together. And that was kind of a spark to me saying, hey, you know what? There's some actual knowledge out there that we don't get from the book, some real world shit that really seems to resonate a little bit more with me and seems to work. And that really sparked my interest in training outside my department and not always relying on what the book says, getting outside my bubble, so to speak. And quite honestly, it's the best thing I've done for my career, to be honest.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with a lot of that stuff. And also the Bruce City Fools is out of Milwaukee area. Okay.
Yeah. They're based in the Milwaukee area, but there was a number of us that were involved. I'm no longer involved with them. But there was some time when we had people from, Illinois that were helping or were members. We had Beaver Dam, myself here being out of, the Brooklyn area, south of Madison and north of that and all that. So just because that a particular Fools organization is based out of a particular regional area does not mean that you're totally tethered to that particular chapter.
Got it. All right. Well, let's dive into some fitness stuff, and I'll ask the question of: was there like a time where you realized that maybe you weren't in the best shape, or you had a call or something that kind of opened your eyes to that? Like, hey, I need to get in more shape, or has that always been something you've been focused on?
Well, we'll get back to that moment we talked about because that's a critical thing for everybody, I think. But I've always been in pretty good shape. I was a high school athlete. I was a collegiate athlete. I played college football. I also played 1 year of Arena League football. So it's always been around. And I always stayed in reasonably good shape after the fact. But when I got into the fire service, it kind of dawned on me. I'm like, hey, you know what? It's probably a good idea that I stay in shape. This is cool because I kind of had purpose behind it. Other than just, being able to function and be healthy. There was a reason behind it, and I could, push myself to even be more fit. But also, I also looked at it, and I'm kind of like, so why isn't everybody else doing this? And I kind of looked at myself maybe as an anomaly, something that was kind of out of the ordinary of where I was at. But again, we praise these things. We push these things about being fit in the fire service. Now, the thing that I've gathered over the years is that being fit for duty means different things to different people. A lot of times people think that, when they have to get fit for duty, and this is a true story. I had a former paid on call member at my previous department came up to me and he's like, hey, did you see how much I benched yesterday? He put it on Facebook, and I'm like, no, man, I didn't. And I can't remember exactly how I said it, but, he told me the amount that he benched, and it was an impressive amount. He's a big kid too, and good on him. But in the same token, I was like, I would much rather you, instead of being able to bench press a house, bench press a mobile home and have some ability, some flexibility, some cardiovascular endurance, all those things together, because that's what's going to help us on the fire ground. I've seen a lot of really big dudes, get off rigs, put that pack on, and they're 40 feet up the sidewalk, up to the front door, and they're gassed. And we need to make use of that strength that those people have, but you're no good to us if you're gassed by the time you hit the front door, especially if you're on the nozzle. What are you going to do now, man? You're gassed. Right. And that impacts us in a lot of different ways. As far as having that moment, I get even, I'm going to toot my own horn here. I'm in pretty good shape. Okay. But I still have moments to this day where I'm like, I'm in the middle of a training. Like this morning when I was training, I'm like, whew, this is hard work, man. I'm getting my ass kicked. There are moments along the lines that are reminders to me. But I've also been on fire calls. I've been sitting in rehab where I've got a guy sitting next to me, and he's just like breathing hard, and he's beat red, and he's like, I got to get in shape. And it always sneaks up on us. We know it. We know we need to be in shape. Okay. But it never really impacts us until we're balls deep in the work. We're pulling ceiling, down, or, whatever we're doing. And all of a sudden in the middle of that, you're like, oh my God, this is a lot of hard work. Tomorrow I'm going to get in shape. Tomorrow I'm going to start doing this. And then what happens with a lot of people is tomorrow comes around and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to do it tomorrow. So we go ahead, do another day. And then that next day rolls up and we tend to get lost in life because life gets busy, and I'm not going to fault, people for having busy lives. But But then what happens? You forget about it for like 4 to 6 months, and all of a sudden you're balls deep in another job again, and life is tapping you on the shoulder going, hey, remember when you said you were going to get in shape? Like, oh, yeah, I remember that, So, but to kind of bring it back to the conversation here, everybody has their different idea of being in shape. And my suggestion to everybody is be good enough to get the job done. I'm not telling you or suggesting that you go down into the gym tomorrow and you spend 3 hours just pounding iron and benching this and squatting that and run the Boston Marathon tomorrow. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, what I am saying is come up with a regimen, get uncomfortable, because that's the only way that you're going to change, whether it be your cardiovascular capacity or your strength, your eating habits, okay? And they have to be little bit at a time. You can't have a wholesale change. That's going to be kind of rough for anybody. I had a former lieutenant who had a significant weight problem. We could hear him breathing at the lunch table. And, he had made 2 attempts to get back in shape at my previous department. And, he was talking to me about ideas. And I said, you got to mix some cardio into your workout regimen, and you have to get uncomfortable. And his words to me twice were, well, I'm just not much of a runner. And people think right away cardio is running. Okay. And yeah, it is a form of running, but there's so many more things that we can do on the fire ground or in a gym that are going to cater to cardiovascular. But if you want to choose run, which is very simple and a nice way to start, too many people think that they got to run the Boston Marathon on day one. And that's not true. Okay. My advice to anyone would be, if you're going to run, and again, before I go any further than this, I'm just a guy that has practical experience. Okay. I'm not Aaron Zamzow. Okay. I'm not Mr. Spira. All right. I don't have letters behind my name. I'm not an athletic trainer. Okay. I just have done some things and read some articles and done some things that worked for me. But my suggestion to anyone is, where running, you got to start small, baby steps. You want to run? Okay. Pick a mile. That's going to be your distance. And if you're going to run a mile, break it up. Walk a quarter mile, run a quarter mile, walk a quarter mile, run a quarter mile, and do that for 2 weeks. Okay. And maybe not do it every day. Do it like 3 days. Okay. 3 days out of 7, 3 or 4, whatever. After the 2 weeks goes by, then change it. Maybe you walk a half mile and you run a half mile, and just keep it consistent like that. But you're gradually adding stress to yourself to the point where you hit, that another 2 weeks. Okay, now we're going to run maybe 3/4 of a mile and walk that quarter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Too many people think that they actually have to destroy themselves when they go to the gym. And that's not conducive to coming back the next day. But the key thing is consistency. It was a motivational speaker, Eric Thomas, says, if you want to chop down a tree, you don't cut all around it. You get in one spot and you just keep cutting on that spot in the tree. Find that one thing, those things that are going to affect your physicality and your bottom line, whether it be losing weight, cardiovascular, strength, whatever, and you just be consistent and you keep doing that. All right. I'd rather, and I'll close it up on this, I would rather have a person go in and have 3 or 4 days during the week of 80% doing what they're doing, instead of 1 or 2 days where they're just going balls out and they just destroy themselves. There's got to be some consistency, and you got to leave something in the tank too.
Absolutely. I just had that kind of first moment where I realized, the gym muscles, quote unquote, or whatever, don't really, and then sure, it helps to a point. Sure. But like I said, we were talking about that fire we just had, and the stuff that we do, and it just completely killed me. Sure. So definitely. We got a question. If you recognize that you want change at your fire department for fitness and working out, how would you go about taking that to the brass? With no weights or limited ones, what is an ideal program? Okay. Well, here's the thing. Lead by example. Just like anything we do.
I know this for a fact that if you start doing stuff enough, people will pay attention and they might gravitate you a little bit. So leading by example, your results speak for themselves. Okay. If you drop some weight and you're moving a little quicker on the fire ground, okay, that's going to speak volumes. Okay. You're going to be your best advertisement is your own success. I'm glad that whoever it is asked the questions about, trying to get a workout in without weight equipment and things like that. So during my time at Paratech Ambulance Service, they would not allow us to have, we wanted a treadmill and some weights there, and it was in a spare room. And I had even volunteered to bring in some of my weights from home, and they wanted nothing to do with that. They told us, well, we'll give you this discount, Anytime Fitness, which was bullshit. They're not going to give us that. I laughed at that. But anyhow, what I did was I went and picked up an old tractor tire, and I kept it in the back of my pickup truck. I also had an 8-pound sledgehammer, and I had a backpack full of fire and EMS hardcover books, which after a while got pretty heavy. I also had a curl bar with 2 25-pound weights that I kept in my truck. And we didn't have, let me put it this way. My immediate supervisor was not blind to the fact that this was something that I liked, and this was something that was good for us. But upper management did not want us to have that there. So he kind of went rogue, and I totally appreciate that Travis did that for me and us in general. But I found myself rolling that tire out, keeping it in the apparatus bay there, using the maul to hit on it, flipping the tire around, filling that backpack up with books and doing lunges and ruck. And plus, I had a path around the station. We had a big field in the back that I would run too. So I was close enough for the tones drop. I could come running in and throw my pants on and throw my uniform on and jump and go on the call. The other thing too is that if you have a fire department, you can do some fire related things that are going to get you in shape. All right. This morning, so what I like to do in my AM workouts is I'll finish my AM workouts after shift with doing a firefighter movement. And that this morning I was throwing ladders. So I took the brush truck out and I took every ladder off the back of our ladder truck. I took the 16, I took the 28, the 20, and the 35, and that thing was thrown by myself, solo. That's a lot of work once you start getting up, even that 28's a little more beef to it, and that 35 will kick your ass. All right. But that there in itself is a good workout, and it's practical. You're getting your skills in. A lot of times what I will do is I'll put my gear on, and by the way, it was done with full gear on. A lot of times what I like to do is I'll just put my pack on, full turnout gear, and I'll crawl around the entire station bay to get a cardio workout in. I will take 100 feet of 1 3/4 hose. I will charge it, all right, and I'll put the smooth bore on it, and I will lay it out as if I was going to pull into a structure, and I'll pull it in the parking lot. I'll stretch it out. I'll do some air and field stuff. I'll do clamp slide. I'll do a Camella. I'll do that knee walk. I'll do all that stuff to a certain point, and then I'll do a RIT roll, and then I'll put that hose back down, and then I'll walk back to the apparatus bay doors, and I'll pull that hose in fully charged. That's a good workout, and I'll do about 3 of those. So you don't necessarily have to have, the $1 million weight room with the nice weight rack and the step mill and all that. There are ways around it. You can definitely make do.
That's awesome. They did ask a little bit more about taking it to the brass, like, taking it up to your higher ups. Cause I know there are some departments where that's like a standard, from the chief down, and other departments that's just not the case. So,
I'm very fortunate. My current chief, he sets time aside. Okay. From 3:30 to 4:30. I don't recall the exact time, but he sets time aside where we go and work out. Okay. And there are times where if we're not running EMS calls or whatever, majority of us are downstairs in the gym working out. That's a cool thing. That's cool as hell. And it's cool as hell that I have a chief that supports us like that. My previous chief at DeForest, he supported it, but I didn't have to get on his case and say, hey, could we do this or do that? And my previous chief at Verona was all about it. We had a beautiful gym set up. So, we had some nice equipment there. As far as approaching your chief and saying, hey, chief, we need to bring this, it's always been a very difficult thing because chiefs know, that a fit department is a good department. And the people that we serve know that fit firefighters are what they want. We'll talk about that in a little bit too, because I've had some interesting discoveries, or I guess self-discoveries over the past couple of months that made me kind of chuckle. But that being said, it may be something as simple as going to chief and saying, hey, listen, I've seen some things on the fire ground and we really struggled at this last particular incident. How do we address that? I think that it's a really good idea to get a think tank together, because when you have more people involved in making this happen, anything, that's better, because people feel like they have a dog in the fight and they have a hand in change. And everybody wants to have that in some way, shape, or form. So it doesn't come off as just your idea. Everybody's involved. And I think coming to brass with numbers. I mean, it's no secret that in our line of work, okay, we're obese. We're not dying of falling off of roofs. Okay, there's a lot of people out there that think that American firefighters, and I say American because I got in a little bit of a pissing match with a Euro guy saying, you stupid Americans, you're dying all the time. And I'm like, what are we dying from? It's like falling off roofs. I'm like, wrong. That's not what we're dying from. So zip it. We're dying from cardiac issues. Okay, we got hypertension. We got diabetes. Okay, we're dying on before we even get to the fire ground. We're dying when we're driving home from calls. Okay, that's what's killing us. And of course, cancer. All right. But on the fitness side of things, these are things that are important, and going chief with numbers and showing this. Okay. And beyond brass, your fireboards and all that, they've got to look kindly on those things too. So that's also somebody to get on your side in some way, shape, or form. So my suggestion would be sit down, have a meeting with chief, see if you can rally up some people to kind of be on your side about this, and come to your chief, come to brass with facts, come to them with numbers, and make it work. Show them how this is going to be a benefit. The other thing about fitness too is, and this is something that I'm painfully aware of, no pun intended, nothing to do with pain, but our fitness is going to have a lot to do with our quality of life after we retire. Okay. It has a lot to do with during our career, but it has a lot to do with after we retire. There's a lot of guys and gals out there that got dinged up on the job, and they either have to retire because they got injured on the job, or they left a job, they left the career with some type of debilitating injury or something like that, or they just decided to piss off their entire career, not take care of themselves, put on 15, 20 pounds, get some cardiac issue, and now they're saddled with that for the rest of their life, leaving the fire service. And what does that do for your quality of life? And I'll bring up another thing about fitness too. Is a good friend of mine, Tony Gillian. You might be familiar with Tony. A lot of people out there might be familiar with his situation. The flying Halligan guy. Tony had a Halligan fall off a ladder, hit him in the head, and he had a spinal cord injury. And just to paraphrase here, there was a chance that he would not walk again. But Tony, being the guy that he is, he approached his rehab with a stiff upper lip and made shit happen. And a year or so afterwards, 2 years ago, actually, at Great Lakes Hot, I had the opportunity to talk to Tony again. It was good to see him. He was up walking around, still, built like a Scottish brick shithouse, and all that. And I said, hey, I got a question for you. And I knew the answer, but I wanted to pick his brain a little bit too. I said, do you think with your injury and your rehab, do you think your fitness prior to that injury, okay, had anything to do at all with your ability to rehabilitate, from this injury? And he's like, absolutely. And I buy into that from a standpoint of your body being used to being broken down and beat up and healing itself. From a standpoint of having some gumption and some grit and saying, you know what, this rehab's going to suck, but I got to get it done to get to a better place. Much like lifting weights. Hey, you know what, or losing weight. You know what, I got to lose 15 pounds because I suck ass on the fire ground. All right. And it's going to suck to run a mile, 3 times a week. Okay. But if I keep my head down and keep charging forward, it's going to happen. And you get calloused. Okay. You physically build that resilience. I guarantee you that's what helped Tony get through that as well.
Got it. Yeah, I haven't heard about that. I wrote it down. Definitely going to do some research on that. We're just going to stay on this fitness train for a little bit. Another question from the same person. Do you think we need to focus our brand new people in the technical college programs and continued adult learning with PT requirements or recommendations in class to set the standard for everyone?
I think it's a good idea. I'll say it. When I went to Fire One, and I'll even say it. I'd say it because I'm that guy. Even at the Fire Academy at Portage, there was a lot of people that never were people that were physically fit beforehand, and there are people that were, and we could definitely tell the difference between those people. There were people dragging ass, and there were people that were finishing up, and they're like, "Hey, it's a lot of work, but I made it." I do think that it's something that the technical colleges should be offering because it means it's that secret ingredient in what we do. Okay. I know it's overdone. It's oversaid. It's almost redundant to a certain extent, but we are tactical athletes. Okay. We're athletes. If I'm going to take a 24-foot ladder and flip it up on my shoulder and go trucking across the front lawn and do an alley raise, throw it up against the window, that's an athletic move. Okay. There's some movement that's involved in that. So it behooves us to be physically in shape. All right. And I'm sure you can agree with me because you've taught search before. Okay. If we're doing something like a leg lock and you're pulling somebody 10 feet, okay, that's an athletic move. It's not only using strength, but you've got to get that arm the right way, and you got to, work on your breathing, and it's, pushing off with one and supporting the other. There's a lot of things going on there. So yes, I absolutely do think that should be something that's on there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So let's go into, I know we could talk about fitness for hours. But I want to say two things first is one, we'll go into some training and, some of your stuff on that. But first, I saw Search Culture's post today about the masking up with the hood on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the thing that I see a lot, and I think maybe has a stain on the fire service, is the comments, the negative comments about people like, like this, and this, and just people being just dicks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw your comment on there, and I wanted to make this a point, and it's like, hey, I tried this. It didn't work for me. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, if it works for you, that's great. So I think more people with that attitude, as far as the training would be great. And then people that will throw shade at a tactic or something, but it's like, okay, instead of arguing against a tactic, why don't you record a video of yourself doing it and show us? Mm-hmm. So that's just another thing.
If there's one thing I've learned in the fire service, and you can speak to this, there's a lot of people out there doing different things. Okay. And we're exposed to, that is one of the cool things about being in the fire service right now, with the advent of social media. We have access to so much different information, and we find out that there's the old adage that firefighting is regional. They're doing things a little bit differently in the Southwest than they are in up here in the Midwest, and so on and so forth. And there are certain tactics out there that we're not exposed to. And, it happens all the time where somebody sees a tactic online, looks at it and goes, the hell is that? That's dumb, and they've never been exposed to it. They've never tried it. And this is one of those examples. I remember the whole mask over versus under, which we're talking about. I was exposed to that like maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I kind of like, at first I'm like, oh, okay. So I gave it a shot. And like I mentioned, my thing is, I tried it with over the top and I did it with under the mask. And my reply stands, you know what? First of all, do what works for you. Okay. What works for you, what's safe, all that stuff. But when I vet this stuff, check it out. See if it works for you, though, first before you scoff and blow it off. For me, I found that if I use an older, thinner hood, that it's going to seal a little bit better. But the trade-off to that is I'm losing that thermal layer, that thermal protection. So if I go with something heavier, it's going to protect me, but I'm not going to have that seal. So I'd rather have that heavier hood and go over the mask, traditional as we'll call it, versus the other way. And if you've got a hood that's thin enough and you get that seal, knock yourself out, man. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, and I've had kind of the same thing a while ago too. It was a video of I don't know what department, but they were doing some VES, and there was no person footing the ladder, and the comments on there, they're like this would never happen in this country, and like this is totally against the rules, and like I don't remember exactly what I said, but it's like if you show up and you have 3 people, okay, and there's like a search that needs to be made, and the other 2 people are busy doing whatever they need to be doing, you're just gonna stand there because nobody's not footing the ladder. Like that's just ridiculous.
We today's day and age, we are, and it's been said, I can't remember exactly what it said. It might have been Scott Thompson. We are manpower limited and we are task saturated. So if in an engine company, if you show up with 4 people ready to rock, you're fortunate. And a lot of times we find there are departments out there that run with 3, so we have to multitask. We don't have that extra guy footing the ladder. Okay, well, we have to go without footing it. And I'll be honest with you. With Van Ender Search, that's definitely a positive of having somebody down footing the ladder. But are you going to have somebody? And again, I made an observation. It was an old video where a guy was on a ladder. He was climbing up and he was going on the roof, and the ladder slid and boom, went down on the ground. And the first thing the guy says, well, if he would have had somebody footing a ladder, they need to foot a ladder. This is stupid and all that. And I said, yeah, it's great to have somebody footing a ladder. But I can guarantee you, if you look on the roof, what's on the roof? Snow. Okay, I guarantee you there was some melting that was going on the ground. So the ground was wet and or icy. Would that ladder have slid down if the ice and water or whatever that is was there? Do you really need somebody to foot the ladder? Shit, all the ladders I threw this morning and climbed by myself, do you think I had anybody footing the ladder? I didn't. I put it up and I climbed the ladder to the top and came back down and put it away. It's all about angles and paying attention to the environment that you're setting up on.
Yeah, for sure. I want to also say one thing too is when I came down to Old Fashioned and sat through your a case for aggression, you had said something that I had heard not too long before that, but has definitely been something that has stuck out to me, and we can definitely talk about this, but it's about being a nerd. And so when I went to Sawdust City in Oshkosh, and I was fortunate to hear Sam Hiddle from Wichita, and what blew my mind was he had like 100 or 150 slides all on forcible entry, showing the angles, the numbers of everything you could possibly imagine about forcible entry. And there's some people that are like, why do you need that many slides, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, dude, that is exactly what we need. Like, you can have hundreds of slides for something that seems so basic. So I love that. And I think, what you had said about everyone's a firefighter, but find what you want to be a nerd at. Like some people it's forcible entry, search, whatever. So I think that's awesome, and we can go into a little bit about that, and then tie that into some training stuff as well.
If you think Sam Hiddle's presentation with all the slides was a thing, you should have been at the house the night before, because he stayed with us and he flipped out his laptop, and we were just like boom all around the laptop watching him go through every slide. Sam is amazing. He is absolutely amazing with the things that he can talk about and finesse it. And there are sometimes he talks about stuff where I'm like, whoa, hold on.
Right.
Back the truck up. What? He's just amazing.
Yeah, for sure. So I got some more questions, kind of unrelated to what we were going to talk about, but we can absolutely go there. What's your best experience or happening that defines brotherhood?
Oh, I'll say this before I get into this. I think that brotherhood, is a thing. Don't get me wrong. It's a thing. But I think that sometimes it gets tossed around a little too much, and I would never want anyone to take that personally. Okay. But if I've just met you or we hang out while I'm at work or whatever, we haven't established a relationship, you know what I mean? We could be peers, but you may not be my brother. Yes. Okay. But that's not to say that you couldn't become quote unquote brothers with that person.
Right.
I want to put this the correct way. Can you repeat the question about brotherhood again? Because I don't want to miss
Yeah.
the point.
Yeah, no, your best experience or happening that defines brotherhood.
Oh, here's what I'll tell you. This is one of many. So a number of years ago, when I was with Brew City Fools, a guy that I absolutely love, and I miss talking to this guy because he's so much fun. Tony Ruda. He's with the City of Milwaukee Fire Department.
Okay.
And unfortunately, his wife passed away. And there was a fundraiser that was created. A bunch of us from Brew City got together, and I was just a member at that time. I wasn't a board member, so there was a thing going on. It was a fundraiser, and I wanted to go, to mix and mingle and do my part. I thought that was really cool. We had a lot of different firefighters from different places show up to show their respects, contribute things to the raffles, and just be there for Tony. And that was pretty cool. I'm trying to think of other ones because I know they're out there. They truly are out there, and I know I'm missing some. It kind of caught me off guard. That's good. I appreciate that. But it's out there, and brotherhood cannot be. It doesn't have to be as grandiose as what I just said. It can be something as simple as, "Hey guys, I'm moving this weekend." Which we had a lot of that going on with Portage doing that hiring. "Hey, I'm moving this weekend. Can somebody come? We get together Saturday and help me move some big stuff?" Things like that. We can't always be there to facilitate that, but lending a hand every now and then, that's definitive of brotherhood right there. Away from the job, it manifests itself in a lot of different ways. I've had friends that have and brotherhood for me goes beyond to like the fire service. I had a friend that was struggling for a while. He was a law enforcement officer for the town of Beloit, and he struggled with some stuff, and just called me out of the blue one night. My phone's ringing. I hadn't talked to this guy in 2 or 3 years. At 2:00 in the morning, what's he calling for me? "Hey man, what's up?" Hey, and he was talking to me. I knew something was bothering him. When he was struggling with an incident that took place and having some family issues, and without going too far down the rabbit hole, sometimes all you got to do is listen. That's all you got to do sometimes to help somebody out. You may not have answers for them, but if you listen to them, that's all you need to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know there are, the stigma, I guess you could call it still, but I mean, no matter what, like for anybody is don't be scared to ever reach out for anything. Yeah. And that goes to you, to me, to whoever. And to touch on some more of the brotherhood stuff, and I see this the most with like the Yard Foundation and hitting it hard from the yard. There's all the controversy, all the jokes with that. Yeah. And then it comes time where there's a death or something bad, or someone's family needs help. And like last month, a few weeks ago, when the Idaho incident happened, and they're selling the T-shirts, and like it was like a week, they raised like $150,000. Like that is awesome. And I see that too in my area a lot. If there's like a member of a neighboring department who passed away or something, like all the departments coming, and I think that is, for me at least, the biggest thing where I see that. And to go back to some mental health stuff, we got another question. Do you or your department discuss how each call went? If so, when, and how important is that to you?
I think it's important, especially in some of those really stressful calls, to debrief. Whether it's something as simple as discovering child abuse. We see some pretty colorful. I guess colorful is not the way to look at it, but to see some pretty bad things. I always say to everybody, we see people at their very best, and we also see people at their very worst. And it's very difficult for us at times to separate ourselves from those things. It's like walking in mud. Okay. I can go out and I can walk around a puddle out here, and I can walk back in the house, and I'm gonna wipe my feet off on the rug. But there's a chance I'm still gonna have some on me. We got to make sure we clean our boots off after every call. And what's some of the best ways to do that? Talking about it. I think it's a good idea to talk about stuff like that after calls like that, where we have something traumatic, whether it be a death or a mass casualty incident. I've been involved in both scenarios like that. I was involved in a 26 car pileup. Okay. And there was one fatality, and it was a thing, and another thing to keep in mind too, is that, what we do affects everybody differently. Somebody may go to a P&B, pulseless non-breather patient that, was discovered that they had passed. Okay. And they were on hospice, and it was their time. Okay. For lack of a better term. For me, someone who's exposed to this regularly, okay, it may not affect me. However, that new guy on the rig, that may trigger him in some way, shape, or form. Or I might go to a call like that, and something about that particular call strikes a chord with me. Oh my God, this lady used to, know so-and-so, or used to be a teacher, used to be involved in this and in all those things. I will say it, I'm a little outspoken about the mental health crisis in the fire service, but I respect it. I'm just going to say it, and a lot of people might not like what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it. There are some people out there that there is a mental health crisis. There is, not just in the fire service, but in the United States. But there are also a lot of people out there that do this bullshit stolen valor thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, where, oh, hey, you know what? I've got depression. I've got PTSD. Well, what happened? Well, I got up out of bed this morning, and I'm in a bad mood. I must have depression. Mm-hmm. No, you just have a bad day, dude.
Right.
Okay. And there's a lot of in our society, unfortunately, goes, well, good for you. You're telling everybody that you have PTSD or you have depression. Nice job. Good for you. And what we're doing is we're encouraging that behavior. People see that and they're like, well, maybe if there are people out there, it's stolen valor in a way. There are people out there like, well, if so-and-so on TikTok is crying right now and saying that he or she has got this issue and getting all these hits and all this attention, I would like some of that action.
Right.
Yeah. People are going to there are going to be some people that are like, screw you, you're a dick. You don't know. I know what I know. I'll say this. I've been to enough EMS calls for mental health issues where, you don't have a mental health issue. You're just making very poor decisions, very poor life decisions, and you dug yourself in a hole. Okay. That's why you're depressed. Stop being an asshole. I want to say that. Obviously I can't, but there are people out there that make very, very poor decisions and suddenly decide that they have a mental health issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just share something quick, kind of into the mental health thing, but 3 years ago, I was a little backstory. I spent 4 years through our cadet program with a separate department that I'm on now, and was exposed to a bad accident. Okay, I was 15 or 16, and dude, like, it sucked. And the following day we had our monthly training, and instead of doing the training and whatever, our chief at the time had said, like, hey, we grabbed a few benches from the apparatus bay, we took it outside, and we talked for like 2 hours. And that is something that has definitely stuck with me, and to this day, still having the people that reach out. So definitely like having debriefs on, especially those bad calls, maybe the ones like where it's not just like a dead old person, but like a traumatic car accident or something like that. So that is definitely important.
The thing about it is it's simple. You don't have to pay for that. You don't have to go to a doctor. You can sit down and tailboard with somebody, and you can go ahead and vent that. For sure.
All right. Let's go. I want to go into aggression, and I know that's kind of your wheelhouse there. So another quick thing, man. I have so much stuff that pops in my head last moment. But the night I came down to Old Fashioned Fools, I had a working fire company hat that said aggressive fireman, having no idea that that's what you were going to talk about. So let's go into that.
Yeah. So the whole idea behind it was I was, skimming around one day on Facebook, and there was a magazine that is not named Fire Engineering that had posted an article that was basically running down aggression in the fire service. This is back in March. And this magazine is not scoring a lot of points with me personally and with a lot of people. I think they spend a little too much time at political rallies and not enough time on the fire ground, to be perfectly frank. But that being said, I read the article, and there's a couple of things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I said to myself, well, wait a minute, maybe I'm taking this the wrong way. So I read it again. And I read it again. I'm like, nope, still feel off about it. And, just like a lot of people, I'm just here for the comments. I went and looked, and there was a lot of other people that were rubbed the wrong way about it too. So when I got done reading that, I said, I really don't agree with some of the things that was said, especially when the author of the article was, it said down in the bottom, the author notes that he was a 20-year veteran of emergency services. So like I said to myself, I wonder how much time that guy had spent on the fire ground, or if he's forgotten if he spent a lot of time on the fire ground. But anyways, I kind of said to myself, well, it'd be kind of cool if somebody would kind of write a rebuttal to that, or even support aggression in the fire service. And then I said to myself, well, hey, why don't you write that article? And I kind of laughed about it, whatever, and kind of went about my day. Well, days went to 2 days, and it kind of stayed on my mind. And I found myself taking my cell phone out every now and then, and things would come up related to aggression in the fire service, against it or for it. And I would just kind of jot it down in a notepad and just kind of save it for a rainy day. So how this all came together was Nick Peppard came to me one day, and he's like, hey, would you want to come down and speak to our Fools group? And a couple months, I'm like, yeah, sure. What do you want me to talk about? And he's like, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks, Nick. So I kind of marinated on that for a couple hours. And then I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I got this thing in my cell phone that I'm working on. And I'm like, I could probably do something with that, since, the iron was still hot. The article was dated March 31st, and it was at Sawdust. Mm-hmm. When he asked me in May. So it was still hot. So I kind of parlayed that into a class that I'm still working on right now, still kind of ironing a little bit and fine tuning it. And I was so disappointed. I actually went in to do the class and thought I wouldn't have enough time. And I had so much stuff left over. I was so disappointed afterwards. But, some of the things that were brought up about aggression, basically this guy was beating down aggression in the fire service. And my whole gist of it was, well, wait a minute here now. We're not supposed to be aggressive. Well, let's back the truck up here a little bit. Okay, our label is firefighters. Okay, let's break that word down from a linguistic standpoint. Firefighter. All right, let's remove fire and let's put fighter. Okay, aggression is synonymous with fight, if we want to make it even smaller, or fighter. Okay, so it seems to mesh well. All right, so why is aggression a bad thing on the fire ground or in the fire service in general? The other thing is that it's already there. If we're doing our job correctly, we don't need to tell people we're aggressive. Oh, well, we have a very aggressive surge culture, and I sure as hell hope you do. All right, we shouldn't have to be telling people they're aggressive, because if we're not aggressive, we're not doing the job. The other thing that bothers me is I think that aggression is an advertising ploy. I mean, why would you want to go to ladders when you could go to aggressive ladders, right? Yeah. Why? It's right. It's redundant. The best way that I guess look at it is, a chocolate-covered chocolate bar. Or to take it a step further, my brother used to work for Nicolay Bottling. They bottle water and stuff like that, and they had a product called Water Joe. And what do you think they did with Water Joe? It's caffeinated water. They made coffee with it. Well, you're putting more caffeine into something that already has caffeine. And if you know my brother, he doesn't need any more caffeine at all. So, but that being said, it's redundant. We don't need to be telling people that we're aggressive. Okay, it's part of the job that we do. In the same token, we shouldn't be having people telling us, "Hey, don't be so aggressive on the fire ground." Okay. Right. When we talk about aggression on the fire ground, I know a lot of people think of some, fire jock running 100 miles per hour across the fire ground, dragging a 35 and throwing it all over the place and just out of control. There's a difference between quote unquote aggressive. And I know we want to get rid of the term, but I have to keep using it to prove my point here. One of the quotes, and I'm just going to kind of review here some of the old notes that I had. The author had said that the essence of professionalism lies in preparation, not aggression. And I will counter that by saying that we are able to be aggressive if we are prepared. There are certain things that I would that I would not do on the fire ground, aggressively, if I had not trained on it. As an example, we're going to go back in the Wayback Machine here to 2018, Danny Dwyer. Okay, are you familiar with the story with Danny? Okay.
Yes, I just recently was introduced to that.
So he pulled a gal out of a house in Atlanta, West Atlanta. He went in by himself, went in and grabbed it. Some would consider that an aggressive move. Okay. And the author of the article equated aggression with being mad, being a bully, being frustrated. I can tell you that people, again, his department thought that the city of Atlanta thought it was reckless and it was aggressive, probably. Okay, too aggressive. But do you think that the reason why Danny went into that building is because he was pissed off or frustrated or angry? No, the reason why he went in and did that is because he saw an opportunity to do the right thing and he trained on it and he was confident in his abilities. If we're confident in our skills and abilities, we can safely be aggressive. We can take it up a notch. That allows us to be aggressive, not being mad and angry or scared. The guy went in the article and said that fear is a marquee of aggression. I don't know, man. I know a lot of guys that are scared shitless on the fire ground that aren't inspired to run in a burning building and pull somebody out.
Right.
That doesn't work that way. To take it a step further and talk about incidents. And again, I wasn't there, but there's a lot of information coming out with Wakeman, Ohio, that took place back in October. Okay, we're told that the department took long to get there, and that the way things were set up, a rescue could have been made because they had all the information to make that rescue by the ghost. They showed the room after the burn. Okay, going by the mentality or the mindset that this author is talking about, I guarantee you there was some fear, there was concern, and there was lack of training. Okay. And if that would have lined up with this author's mindset, they would have been going through that window trying to find the gal and her daughter. Right. One more example. When we talk about Polk County back in 2018, okay, there was a gal that was trapped in a house that was on fire. She's in a wheelchair, and she was talking to 911 for like 20 minutes. 5 of those minutes, fire crews were on the fire ground there. They were there on scene, and they didn't make an attempt to rescue her. I wasn't there. Okay, right. But if we're going off of what the author has put in here, that aggression is caused by fear and uncertainty and stuff like that. Well, would they have gone in? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and the Wakeman thing, man, is pretty crazy. So like we were talking before this about the search thing I did at my department, and I would encourage and this again is not me coming from a spot of telling you what to do or that I know everything, but if you're in a department where the search training and stuff is not there, is play the 911 call of Wakeman, Ohio, and listen to the kid. And if that does not spark an interest in, hey, we should probably train, I should probably work out. If that doesn't do it, then I don't know what will, because the faces on the guys on my department, it was like you just stabbed them in the heart, because every person feels for that. So, I mean, that's just, that is something I would definitely recommend too, for sure.
Yep. It definitely pulls at your heartstrings. It definitely does. And it is just horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah. It's, and again, like, we weren't there, but something that we all, every firefighter, every department needs to learn from, because we cannot, I don't want to be on that department or be, on the media release, as that fire department. Let's go into training, and I'll focus this question on the volunteer side of stuff, where it's the training is just not there. And I know this can play into the fitness thing too, and I'm sure you'll go down the road of leading by example. But just some training ideas and how maybe a younger person or just anybody really can get their department more involved.
Well, here's what I'll say about training. Training's got to be consistent. Okay. I'm going to kind of skirt it before I actually get into like the really meat and potatoes of my philosophy. You have to have a crawl, walk, run mindset. Okay. We cannot, let's say, for example, RIT training. I cannot expect people who are day one to be doing bailout drills. Okay. I can't expect them to throw a ladder, go up through the window, go in and find somebody, do that mass conversion if need be, and then pull them out and take them down a ladder.
Right.
Okay. We have to start very basic. We have to work on the foundational entry-level skills because that is the foundation of the run end of things. So that's real important. Where the volunteer side is concerned, there's that consistency thing there that sometimes becomes a problem. You guys don't have set days, at least for a shift that you come in, right? So it makes it very difficult to get everybody together unless even when you have a training night, it's hard to get everybody together.
Definitely.
At my department, we have Tuesdays are training. So there's an AM training and there's an evening training. And then there's opportunities beyond those days to kind of finish it up. So, trying to get the most out of your training opportunities and trying to get everybody there at the same time is kind of tough. You're not able to create that, everybody being on the same page. Like you and I train together. I know that when we deploy a line and we make the entry, you're going to behave a certain way. You're going to flow water a certain way, and I've got to support you, or vice versa. I understand how you do things. Whereas, if we don't work together on a regular basis, sure, I was at training last week for Force and Doors, okay, and I do it a certain way, and I'm used to hearing, for instance, strike, okay, right. When somebody's hitting the axe, but you say hit, things like that, or I communicate in a different way. Okay, that creates issues. That's a tough thing, Whereas, you're in a more regular full-time basis, you've got those opportunities. You're in the same airspace. Take it, to EMS level. I know that my partner is going to go after certain things when he's going to remedy a certain issue or an ailment. And I got to be ready for that. I understand how he works. I got to be ready. I'm working with him on a daily basis in close space. We pick up on those things, and he picks up on things that I do too. So, it's tough when you don't have that regular exposure. My suggestion in a situation like that is, I'll say this. And this is something that has really bothered me over my career, at some instances. We have a really bad habit of introducing a skill and then not touching it for the entire year. We, as an example, we pull a line. We're gonna pull the 1 3/4 today. All right. And we pull it out in the parking lot, which is fine. If you want to crawl, walk, run, that's a nice way to start. We get the feel for it. We know how to deploy it. We know how to load it back up, move it around, all that. And then we don't touch it at all. But more importantly, we don't deploy it into a house, or we don't deploy it in the front yard. So we find out, hey, listen, I'm going to lay it like this. This is how the whole vibe is going to be if I go up to this particular house or a house like this. We don't use it in a practical scenario sense. Okay. But we just pull the line once and minimum skills, we check them off. And then we expect our people to function like they can run. Again, we talk about crawl, walk, run. We expect them to be able to pull a line into a house and navigate it over couches and down steps or up steps or whatever. we haven't exposed them to that. We have to be able to expose them to different environments doing different things, because that creates discomfort, and discomfort creates change, aka growth. And it has to be consistent. We can't do it once a year and think we're going to be good at it. For any of us, I don't care if you're a career guy or a volunteer guy, you have to develop consistency, and you have to touch it more than once.
Absolutely. I had something similar I wanted to say is and you know that Mike Bernard and I are very close. And so since my kind of being a firefighter now is masking up has been a huge thing for me. Like I drill on it and I practice it. And we had a fire, I want to say at the end of March. And leading up to that, like I was doing mask ups, like I was getting it down, like, you know, right around 15 seconds with gloves. Like I was pretty solid at it. And we had a fire and it's like, all right, it's go time. Well, I go to mask up and the gloves are ripped off. Right. So it's like one of those other things. And then you bet, like I continue to practice it now. Like with our last fire, it was like, okay, like it's time to mask up. And I did it with gloves, and maybe it wasn't perfect and maybe it was longer than I thought it was in my head. But it's like, okay, like the training and stuff definitely is paying off too. So doing something also in like the apparatus bay compared to out in the, you know, on the job is completely different.
Absolutely. You've got different stimuli that involve. It's a lot different throwing a ladder on level ground in a parking lot up to a second floor window for your hose tower than it is at 2:00 in the morning in January, okay, up north by us where we possibly could have snow on the ground. We've got ice. All right. And, you know, we just woke up from a dead slumber, and we've got to operate, you know, in the dark, quite possibly. It's a different animal, and we need to, as trainers and as students, allow those different stimuli to enter the picture so that we're prepared for that, not only physically but mentally.
Yeah, for sure. I have a question in the chat, but it actually was going to tie into my next question, and then we can. We'll probably be pretty close to getting wrapped up, but let's go into some mentors. And I want to focus the question on you and the other guys out there who have time on the job, they're experienced. How can they be a good mentor to the new guy there as far as their attitude? And then to go into this question is, who has influenced you the most in your career?
Well, mentors are very, very important. To whether you're a new person coming on the job or into the fire service for the first time, or if you're new to the department. Okay, that's important. Creating that trust and having somebody that you can go to with questions or concerns without being condemned is critical. I think it's important too to understand that even though those of us that have been on the job for a while, even though we may not have a label or appointed as a mentor, we are mentors. We're always being watched. So make sure that you're worth watching. Also, from a mentor standpoint, it's very important to not assume that people are showing up with skills. Okay. You know, one of the things, and it's been a topic of discussion, is the new generation of firefighters coming in, or even EMTs, or just younger people. You know, they don't have the same experiences that I had when I was your age. Right. You know, when I turned 18, I took auto shop classes, power mechanics. Okay, I messed around with an outboard motor and got it to run. You know, or a snowmobile in the backyard. I had some mechanical aptitude. All right. Whereas nowadays, I'm seeing that the younger people are coming in, and a majority of them don't have that mechanical aptitude, but what they do have is the ability to learn, okay, because of the amazing thing called the internet. Okay. I can talk to somebody and talk to them about a small engine, and they might understand the concept, but they can dial it up on their phone and look at it and go, oh, okay. But the important thing is, just like a lot of the things that we see for training online, we actually need to do it. We can't just sit down and look at something and go, okay, that's how you do it, and leave it alone, and then try it when the shit goes south. So again, as mentors, we need to be hands-on. We need to be understanding, and we need to be available to them, and we need to establish trust with them. That's important. Trust is critical, because the moment that they don't trust you, things get tough.
For sure. I don't know if you saw that, but like a few days ago, I made a post, and it was just like a thanks to all those people, and like it's guys like you and JD and Nick who I've maybe talked to for like less than an hour in person.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's like something like, I'm struggling with this, like how do I do this, and I shoot that message out, and 20 minutes later they're sending me paragraphs of like their ideas and hey, here's suggestions. Like it's stuff like that too, and especially the social media thing is just awesome. Like you can connect with so many people that you may not even have met or ever meet in person, but like people that just become your friends, and so that's awesome too. So it seems you've got your points that you've kind of tied everything into, man, is leading by example. And I think that's awesome, and it's something that we can apply to this job, but also just to life in general. So I said this to Nick and Mike Bernard too, I need to have all three of you back on here again down the road, because I don't want these to run too long, and I don't want them to run too short. But like I said, I've got a list of stuff here, and we got through like 2 questions on here.
Sure.
So we'll have you back. We'll have Nick and Mike again. So just want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for just everything that you do, and being a person that is so willing to just come on here to, someone that we've like maybe talked for an hour in person with. So if anybody wants to reach you or has any questions, how can they do that?
I'm the only social media I do is Facebook.
Okay.
I don't do any of that other stuff. I'm pretty simple, pretty basic with stuff like that. Feel free to message me through Facebook. I'm out there. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of ways to reach out to people. To your point, don't be afraid to reach out to people. Ask those questions, because you're not going to get better if you don't ask questions. It's that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I got one ending question here for you, and I kind of want to do this to all the episodes is throw out a question right at the end.
Yep.
What's one piece of equipment or tool that you carry that you suggest everyone should? And maybe it can be something completely normal that everyone has, that you think it could be improved, or something that that you think everyone should have.
There's a lot of things out there that have value to keep in your pockets or whatever. But I'm gonna keep on the fitness train and say fitness.
Okay.
And I'll put it this way. Going back to what I mentioned before, you can have all the right tools. You can have a med bag full of everything you need to remedy any medical condition. All right. I could have my Halligan with me, and I'm pretty confident in taking a residential door or taking windows, all those things. I could have the webbing on me, to do all the things if I need to. But if I don't have fitness, if I can't make it from the apparatus, like I said before, if I can't make it from the apparatus to the front door with a hose load, or if I can't make it across the front lawn with a ladder and thrown up there and I'm gassed, or I start having medical issue, whatever, I'm no good. I'm never going to be able to use that tool. I think that's a valuable tool, asset, attribute, okay, that everybody should have. And again, like I've said earlier, I'm not demanding that people go out and work out like I do. I'm not demanding that they work out before shift, they work out after shift, and then take a day off, and then they run 2 miles on their day off or whatever. I'm not asking you to do that. What I would suggest is that people have a particular level of fitness where you can perform on the fire ground without being a detriment or without being a victim yourself.
That's perfectly said. And I hope people learn from this too, is before you have that moment of, man, I should really be in better shape. So thanks again for coming on, and thanks to all those who stuck around this whole time, and to those that are asking questions. This will be out on Spotify either tonight or tomorrow. And yeah, BJ, I mean, thanks again for doing this.
Not a problem. Anytime. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great, buddy.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Hope everyone has a good night.